Welcome to section 4 in our project risk management knowledge area. So in this section, we're going to be talking about another important process, which is the perform quantitative risk analysis. In section 3, we treated perform qualitative risk analysis. Now we're talking about perform quantitative risk analysis. So let's jump in and get the details. Now, firstly, an overview of the perform quantitative risk analysis. Performing quantitative risk analysis involves a deeper exploration of identified risks, assigning numerical values to these risks for a more precise understanding of their potential impact on project objectives. Okay, so at this time, unlike what we did in the qualitative risk analysis, where we identify the probability as well as the magnitude of the impact of those risks to determine whether they are worthy of response planning, perform quantitative risk analysis involves a deeper exploration. All right, at this time you're going to be assigning numerical values to these risks, all right, in order for you to have a more understanding of their impacts on project objective. Now, this section aims to provide a quantitative basis for decision making by assessing the possible outcomes of identified risks. So it gives you a verifiable basis for decision making. By the end of this section, you should be able to understand the purpose and importance of the perform quantitative risk analysis process, identify the inputs, tools and techniques, and also the outputs of this process. You'll also learn how to assess the possible outcomes of identified risks for effective decision making. All right, so moving on. Now, what are the objectives of the perform quantitative risk analysis? Firstly, it helps us to assign numerical values to the probability and impact of risks. So the probability as well as the impact is going to have values. All right, they are going to be quantified in real terms, and this makes them more relatable. All right, now we'll also evaluate the potential costs and schedule impacts of identified risks. So here we're going to look at the costs, okay, direct costs, indirect costs, and also how they impact on the schedule. All right, talking about the identified risks now. It also provides a basis for decision making and contingency planning. All right, so this analysis and the outcomes thereof actually gives us a framework for informed decision making. Okay, so let's move on. Now, what are the inputs in this process? Firstly, we have the risk register. Now, like I earlier said, this contains information about identified risks and their qualitative assessment. So from the section 3, we've already done qualitative risks assessment. Okay, so you have that handy. Okay, and of course now you are going to be able to make use of them in assigning values to the identified risks. Cost and schedule baseline. Now, this provides a reference for assessing the potential impact of risks on project cost and schedule. So you're going to have your project budget handy, and then of course you're going to have the schedule, talking about the duration and how you allocate time resources to each activity. So you're going to have them handy as inputs in this process. Project documents. These are additional information that may influence the quantitative analysis, such as project plans and resource calendar. So you need to have your documents handy. So you need to have your project documents handy. Okay, so let's look at the tools and techniques. Now, what are the tools and techniques that we employ in this process? Firstly, data gathering and representation techniques. This involves methods to collect and present data such as interviews, surveys, and sensitivity analysis. Okay, we have quantitative risk analysis and modeling techniques. So these are statistical tools and models for assessing the quantitative impact of risks. Okay, so you're going to have to be familiar with statistics, right? And the tools to be able to use this. Simulation. This involves using techniques like Monte Carlo analysis to simulate potential project outcomes based on identified risks. Okay, so you can simulate project outcomes and use it for your analysis. So what are the outputs of this process? Firstly, we have the quantitative risk analysis results. So from the analysis, of course, you're going to have results. All right, and this involves numeric assessment of the potential cost and schedule impact of identified risks. That is, the quantitative risk analysis results will now be presented in terms of their assessment of the project cost, and they will now be presented in terms of their impact on the costs of the project as well as the schedule of that project. Updated risk register, and this includes quantitative assessment for each identified risks. Okay, so of course risks will be there, you've identified them, now flesh them out by assigning values to them. Then of course updates the risk register. Now let's discuss the key takeaways from the perform quantitative risk analysis process. Quantitative risk analysis provides a more detailed understanding of the potential impacts of identified risks. So with this, you're going to have understanding, a more detailed understanding. The use of statistical tools and models enhances the accuracy of risks assessment. So of course, the statistical tools that are employed in the process enhances the accuracy of risk assessment. Results from quantitative analysis inform decision making and contingency planning. Okay, so with the result from this process, you can now make better decisions and also plan much better. Understanding the methodologies and tools employed in performing quantitative risk analysis equips you as a project manager with the skills needed to make data-driven decisions in the face of uncertainty. Alright, so in today's world of uncertainty, we cannot overemphasize the need for a data-driven decisions, right? You cannot just be learning by trial and error, or trying to get things done by trial and error. So you need data driven information. All right, you need to make data driven decisions based on accurate information that you have gathered before now. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this section. See you in the next section. Cheers.